Ontario PC leader Patrick Brown launched his tell-all book this week. It's called Takedown: The Attempted Political Assassination of Patrick Brown. The book makes plenty of accusations against some of his former colleagues, including allegations of inappropriate behavior on the part of Finance Minister Vic Fedeli. Patrick Brown, Mayor-elect of Brampton, joins us from his book launch in Brampton. Hi, Mr. Brown. Nice to have you on the show. Thanks a lot for your time. I want to start off just by asking
It's great to be on your show.
Thank you. I want to start off by asking you, Mr. Brown, what do you have to gain by slagging your former colleagues publicly?
So when I was approached by 3 different publishing companies to write a book, at first I did want to. As you know, when I faced adversity earlier this year, I wasn't talking to the media, all of them, including nice ones like you. I was avoiding the media, and Optimum Publishing convinced me that it would be good to tell my side of the story, to give a sense of how political parties work. Normally caucus and party operations, there's a veil of secrecy over them, and it was great to, it's almost cathartic to highlight through a pen what happened earlier this year.
I take your point. I understand. I even can understand with feelings of bitterness about your demise at the helm of that party and all the things you're talking about. I just don't understand what you gain by doing it so publicly. I understand it being cathartic when you write it out in a diary, let's say, or you talk to a therapist, but to make it so public, you know that you would be doing harm to their reputation, or you would be perceived to be trying to do so.
So obviously there's a lot of interest in what happened earlier this year. I'm sure people, the leadership of Queen's Park don't want to talk about it, but obviously there was some duplicitous actions, and I think the reason there was so much interest in trying to get me to write a book was because the public is interested, and by virtue of book sales, I understand it's #1 on Amazon, and they've had to restock orders already at Chapters and Costco. Obviously, the public is interested in what happened, and the fact that we're seeing that interest is a good thing. We should have more interest in what goes down at Queen's Park, and I would say, listen, I'm very kind to some people in the book, and I am more critical of others in the book. I would just say it's a good Christmas gift, and I hope everyone buys a copy.
It sounds like me like you did it to sell books then.
Well, obviously, the publisher of the Optimum Publishing would want to sell books, but yeah, anytime you write a book, you hope that that there'd be interest in it, there'd be interest in your story, and I'm encouraged by the sales so far.
Even in the case of Minister Fedeli, for example, you admit in the book that the purported complainant didn't want the matter to proceed. Is making that matter public helpful to the complainant at all?
So, first of all, let's say I didn't talk about any of the details. I didn't mention any name. If there was a resolution after I left provincial politics, it's between them. The only thing I'd say is that given the seriousness of the allegations at the time, it just speaks to the hypocrisy given what Mr. Fedeli said at the time. We were all in disbelief that he would utter the words that he did, given the predicament that he was in.
But I'm just wondering what
let me say,
how it helps.
That's one example of the many of the hypocrisy at Queen's Park. When people ask me, how am I enjoying things in Brampton, I say, I'm very happy that I'm not at Queen's Park. It can be vicious, it can be nasty, and I think you see a sense of that when you read some of the chapters of the book.
I just don't understand how it helps the complainant who said that they wanted this not to proceed by you making it public. I take your point that you're trying to allege that there's a level of hypocrisy with Minister Fedeli, well, but you raised an issue, you raised a case that happened that someone who wanted to move on.
Vassy, you're making assumptions on behalf of the complainant, and I'll leave it there. I don't think any of us have the right to make those assumptions.
You said that the complainant didn't want the matter to proceed.
No, I'm not making any assumptions. At the time, we're not going to get into the details of that out of respect for the complainant. Whatever resolution was arrived at is between Mr. Fedeli and the complainant. I'm not going to get into that, and it would be inappropriate for me to comment on that.
Okay, let me ask you about Brampton. You brought up Brampton and being the mayor of Brampton. I read a quote in a local paper there where you said, Brampton is getting peanuts. It might have even been on election night, I believe, compared to other communities in terms of federal and provincial investments. And here's the reality. We all pay the same federal and provincial taxes, and you added that you would demand greater funding from other levels of government. How do you think, calling out your former colleagues in this manner will help your cause at Queen's Park?
So the tendency in Peel region has been to simply suck up to the government of the day, to be their apologist. The predecessor as mayor of Brampton was Kathleen Wynne's best friend. They were seatmate, and we got nothing for 4 years. Right now we have 60% less healthcare beds. We have 90% less, sometimes on transit projects. Doug Ford just canceled our university. We're getting peanuts, and being nice, being polite hasn't worked for our community. I believe it's important to take the government to task when they're not being fair. You know, Hazel McCallion had a very acrimonious relationship with Mike Harris when he was premier, but she got results. The reality is the government historically has responded when there's fires they've had to put out, when there's damage control, and frankly, we need to raise more issues in terms of where they're not being addressed in Brampton. I'm very disappointed with the way that funding has gone in Peel region, in Caledon, and Mississauga, and Brampton. But I just say, in the midst of this debate over the need to have a fair deal in Brampton, there is a silver lining. I just want to say I'm encouraged by the phone call that I got from Prime Minister Trudeau, where he reached out to say, you know, Brampton was reeling, disappointed when Doug Ford canceled the university a few weeks ago, and I got a phone call from the Prime Minister saying the federal government wanted to be supportive of the city of Brampton, that if we have projects that we should make his office aware of it. I'm not sure Brampton has been talked as much about at Queen's Park and in the House of Commons as before, but I'm glad we're on the radar. And I would say to both Prime Minister Trudeau and to Premier Doug Ford, it's in their self-interest to support the needs of the city of Brampton. If you want to become Prime Minister or Premier, you need to win seats in the 905. It is almost impossible to do so unless you win seats in the 905, and this is at the heart of that electoral battle, and they'll have a willing and positive partner in the city of Brampton if they do deliver. And I'll be very clear, if Doug Ford supported projects in Brampton, I'd be the first to praise him. Okay. Unfortunately, the only thing he's done since he's been in office was cancel our university.
Let's just say then that, let's just assume that your point is correct, that some level of acrimony between the municipal level and the provincial level actually helps, doesn't hurt the municipality. This isn't like any other government. There are allegations against Premier Ford that, for example, he went after Toronto City Council out of a vendetta. He has said of you that there is no validity to what you're saying. He would rather endorse, I would rather have the endorsement of Kathleen Wynne than Patrick Brown. The lies in this book, Premier Ford says, are disgusting. Do you actually think you have better advantage the city that you now helm?
Because it's in his self-interest. It's in Doug Ford's self-interest if he wants to stay in office. You know, he may have enemies in Toronto, and they're saying that he may want to be, you know, get back at them. Obviously, he's run against many of them before. He may have enemies in Brampton or elsewhere. At the end of the day, these are all areas that he needs to win if he wants to stay as premier. And so I think rather than there being petty personal politics, I believe the majority of people making these decisions will be mature and will do what's in the best interest of our province. And if they don't, frankly, then voters will render judgment on them. I still have hopes that we'll see a level of maturity out of the provincial government, and we'll see them support projects that are important to Ontarians and Canadians.
Even after the things you've said about his ministers? Really?
Listen, obviously I've got disagreements with a few of the ministers, but that's not new. That's not bringing anything. That's not breaking any friendship that wasn't there. These individuals campaigned against me in the municipal election. As I'm sure you've read, there were stories on that. They were active trying to make sure that I didn't win as Brampton mayor. They were unsuccessful. The people didn't want to, be preached at from the establishment of who should be their mayor. They wanted a mayor who would stand up for the community. They were tired of the status quo, tired of the underfunding, tired of having mayors who were apologists for other levels of government, and they wanted a mayor who would stand up for the community, and that's what I intend to do.
Okay, I'm out of time. I have to leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
My pleasure.